Hi everyone, my name is Vinod Sanadia. We are pleased that you are taking time out of your busy day to know more about serverless architecture. Today we will discuss about the advantages and disadvantages of serverless architecture. We will also focus on the major differences between serverless and server-based systems. Please feel free to put your questions anytime using the tab at the right side of your screen. We will try to answer as many of your questions as possible at the end of the presentation. We will also send everyone an email with a link to the recording and the presentation slides in a week or two. Please allow me a minute to introduce OpenXcell Technolabs. OpenXcell Technolabs is a CMI Level 3 and ISO 9000-2008 certified company located in India and USA. We are a team of enthusiastic designers, developers and managers exiting the strength of 200. We have a strong hold in mobile app development, web development, e-commerce development and enterprise systems. We have delivered quality solutions across the globe. So the presentation will be carried out by Varshal Patel and Darshan Jain. Varshal is working as a delivery manager in OpenXcell Technolabs. He is working in IT industry from last 9 years and has delivered various software solutions globally. Darshan is a senior tech lead in OpenXcell Technolabs. He has more than 5 years of experience in software development. Presently, he is focused on establishing serverless architecture for various clients of OpenXcell. And here is the objectives for this webinar. So we will start with overview of microservices. We'll see the introduction about serverless architecture. We'll go through with the uses of AWS services to develop serverless system. Then we'll take difference between server-based architecture and serverless architecture. We'll also see benefits of serverless architecture. Then we'll take introduction of AWS Lambda and key benefits of AWS Lambda. We'll also go through real uses of Amazon Lambda, and then we'll take limitations of AWS Lambda, and after that we will conclude our presentation and we'll have a question and answer session. So for next topic, I'll invite Darshan to take the slides ahead. Darshan, please carry on now.
Thank you, Vinod. Hello, a very good evening to everyone. Before we start our discussion about the serverless architecture, let me explain you about the evolution of monolithic architecture to the microservice architecture. When developing a server-side application, you can start with the modular, hexagonal or layer architecture, which consists of different types of components like presentation layer, business logic, database access, as well as the application integration. There are few drawbacks of the monolithic architecture. In monolithic architecture, continuous deployment is very difficult and difficult to scale when different modules have conflicting resources requirements. User may also face the problems when the application is too large and complex to make changes fast and correctly. The size of the application can slow down the startup time. Monolithic application can also be limitations in the size as well as the complexity. And the main problem of the monolithic application is the reliability. Bug in any kind of module can potentially bring down the entire process. So here is the microservices come into the picture, and how can we get the benefits of using into our business applications. Basically, microservices architecture has an answer to all of the problems of the monolithic architecture. The idea is to split your application in set smaller interconnected services instead of the building single monolithic architecture. Each microservices is a small application that has its own hexagonal architecture consisting of business logic along with the various kind of adapters. Some microservices would expose REST, RPC or message-based APIs, and the most services consumes API provided by other services. The microservices architecture pattern significantly impacts the relationship between the application and the database. Instead of the sharing single database schema with the other services, each service has its own database schema instance, and it's often results in the duplication of some data. However, having a database schema per service is essential if you want to benefit from the microservices because it ensures loose coupling. Each of the services has its own database. Moreover, the service can use the type of database that is best suit as per your needs. So this is just overview of the microservices architecture. Now let me explain you some key benefits of the microservices which can be utilized into our web or mobile applications. It tackles the problems of the complexity by decomposing application into the manageable services which are much faster to the develop and much easier to understand and maintain. It enables each services to be developed independently by a team that is focused on that services. It reduces the barriers of the adopting new technologies since the developers are free to choose whatever technology makes sense for their services and not bound to choices made in the starting of the project. Microservices architecture enable each microservices to be deployed independently. As a result, it makes continuous deployment possible for the complex kind of applications as well. Microservices architecture enable each service to be scaled independently. Now let's discuss about the serverless architecture. In everyday cloud deployments, you define and deploy your infrastructure, install the softwares and run code on the servers. You then have to manage and maintain those servers. So for overcome this problem, serverless computing allows you to build, run applications and services without having to manage the infrastructure. Your applications still run on the servers, but all of the server management is done by the AWS. You no longer have to provision, scale and maintain the server to run your applications, database and storage systems. Serverless architecture replacing long-running virtual machines with the ethereal compute power that comes into the existence on the request and disappears immediately after you can use. There are many providers in the market who provides the serverless architecture like Amazon AWS, Microsoft Azure, IBM Bluemix, OpenXcell, Iron, etc. We are preferring the Amazon AWS serverless architecture as an example to give you idea about how microservices and the serverless architecture works together. In image, you can see there are many AWS services mentioned which are Amazon S3, CloudFront, Amazon Lambda, API Gateway, as well as the DynamoDB, which gives you the brief idea about the serverless architecture of the Amazon AWS and how it distributes the business logic, database storage, as well as the presentation layer. So this diagram shows number of Amazon services which can be used to develop any business applications with the serverless architecture. Each services has its own features to be used into any kind of system. First one is Amazon Cognito. Amazon Cognito lets you easily add user sign up as well as sign in to your mobile and web applications. You also have the options to authenticate the user through the social identity providers such as Facebook, Twitter, etc. Second one is AWS Identity and Access Management. AWS IAM is a web service that helps you securely control access to AWS resources for your users. You use the IAM to control who can use your AWS resources and what resources they can use and in what ways. Third one is Amazon Cognito Sync. That is an AWS service and client library that enables the cross-device syncing of the application related user data. You can use it to synchronize user profile data across mobile devices and the web without requiring any on backend. Fourth one is Amazon Mobile Analytics. You can use to measure the app users as well as the revenue by tracking key trends such as the new versus returning users, app revenues, user retentions, and custom in-app behavior events. You can make data-driven decisions to increase the engagement and modernization of your applications. Fifth one is Amazon AWS Lambda that runs your code without provisioning or managing your servers. You pay only for compute time to consume. There is no charge when your code is not running. Sixth one is Amazon S3, which is a simple web services interface that can use to store and retrieve any amount of data at any time from anywhere on the web. It gives you any developer access to the same highly scalable, reliable, fast, inexpensive data storage infrastructure. Seventh one is Amazon CloudFront, that is a global content delivery network, which is also known as a CDN. That service accelerates the delivery of your websites, APIs, video content, or any other web assets which you have. Eighth one is Amazon Simple Notification Service, which is also known as SNS. That is very fast, flexible, fully managed push notification services that let you send individual messages or fund out the large number of recipients. And the last one is the Amazon DynamoDB. That is a fast and flexible NoSQL database service for all of the applications that need consistent single digit millisecond latency any scale. It is fully managed cloud database and support with the document and key value store models. So this is all about the Amazon AWS services. Now let's discuss about the key benefits of the serverless architecture. First one is scalability. Scalability is also simple with this serverless architecture. If the function need to be scaled, the infrastructure will make copies of the function to handle the loads automatically on the server. And yes, one of the biggest benefit of the serverless computing is that you only pay for the runtime of your function. Means there is no concept of idle resources, as you are not charged if the function is not executed on the cloud. So it turns out the lesser cost than the maintaining server on the monolithic architecture. Functions are single threaded, which makes debugging and the deploying functions very easy and simpler. The build process is also broken down into smaller and more manageable chunks. This increases the number of chances that can be pushed through the continuous delivery pipeline, resulting in the rapid development and deployment and more iterative feedback. Serverless is basically the idea of removing the need to worry about the servers from the mix of the things that is needed to do, as we do in the monolithic architecture. Although the current providers limit the uses of serverless architecture to certain technologies, but yes, it is going to be available soon for all of the technologies over the web. We do not need to install any kind of software. We cannot keep in any kind of memory case or the session data like we use in the monolithic architecture. Now, Varshal will explain you about the Amazon AWS Lambda, its benefits and few limitations which Lambda have.
Thank you, Darshan. Hello, everyone, and a very good evening to everyone attending today's webinar. So, Darshan has already briefed you about overview of serverless architecture, its usage of AWS service to develop system, its benefits, and its comparison against server-based architecture. So now let us go into introduction of AWS Lambda. AWS Lambda is a compute service that lets you run code without provisioning or managing servers. AWS Lambda executes your code only when needed and scales automatically from a few requests per day to thousands per second. So you pay only for the compute time you consume. There is no charge when your code isn't running. So with AWS Lambda, you can run code for virtually any type of application or a backend service, all with zero administration. It also allows you to run your code on high availability computer infrastructure and performs all of the administration of the compute resources, including server and operating system maintenance, capacity provisioning, and automatic scaling, code monitoring, and logging. So all you need to do is supply a code in one of the language that AWS Lambda supports. Currently it is Node.js, Java, C#, and Python. There are many different event sources available that can trigger the execution of the Lambda, including AWS API Gateway, which allows building REST APIs backed by Lambda functions, resulting in an almost perfect microservice architecture implementation. Amazon S3, for processing changes of objects in S3 buckets, AWS IoT for handling events coming from connected devices, uh, and AWS Alexa Skills API for implementing Alexa skills and others. All right, so let me just walk you through the next key benefits of AWS Lambda. AWS Lambda automatically runs your code without requiring you to provision or manage servers. Just write the code and upload it to Lambda. AWS Lambda automatically scales your application by running code in response to each trigger. Your code runs in a parallel and processes each trigger individually. So with AWS Lambda, you can charge for every 100 milliseconds your code executes and the number of times your code is triggered. So you don't have to pay anything when your code isn't running. So there is a fourth benefit which Lambda gives is bringing your own code. There is no new framework or new language to learn. It commonly supports languages used like Java, any other JVM based languages, C#, Python, Node.js, and it will also continue to extend other languages in future. Here are some of the real uses of Amazon Lambda. Lambda can be directly triggered by AWS services such as S3, DynamoDB, Kinesis, SNS, and CloudWatch, which will be used as a data processing. Real-time file processing. You can use AWS S3 to trigger Lambda to process data immediately after an upload. For example, you can see an image thumbnail creation example in the image which is mentioned on the slide. You can use Lambda to thumbnail images, transcode videos, index files, process logs, validate content, and aggregate and filter data in real time. Some of the other real uses of Amazon Lambda, which are as like you can also extract, transform, and load, like in AWS Lambda and Kinesis to process real-time streaming data for application activity tracking, transaction order processing, social media analysis, etc. It also used into IoT backends. AWS Lambda to perform data validation, filtering, sorting, or other transformation for every data change in DynamoDB table. It also used in serverless backends using AWS Lambda to handle web, mobile, Internet of Things, and third-party API requests. Backend using like AWS Lambda and Amazon API Gateway to authenticate and process API requests. Lambda makes it easy to create and personalize app experiences. By combining AWS Lambda with other AWS services, developers can build powerful web applications. So as you see into example of weather application, the weather code is hosted into S3. When user clicks link to get local weather information, app makes REST API to make endpoints which invokes the Lambda function, and Lambda runs code to retrieve weather information and return back data to a user. Let's discuss about the limitations of AWS Lambda. So obviously, like other cloud offering, Lambda has also few limitations. Let's discuss it one by one. Lambda is available only on specific regions at the moment. There are quite some resource limitations per function and per account. So it limits page lists and resource limitation per function and per account. Example, maximum execution duration per request is set to 300 seconds. Deployment package size, which is set to 50 MB in compressed size, and non-persistent scratch area available for the function to use, which is like 500 MB. It also takes time for the Lambda function to handle a first request because Lambda has to start a new instance for the Lambda function. Overall, weak in general around like in documentation and deployment tools, since we are into quite a initial stage. Lambda supports only Java, Node.js, C# and Python. So currently there are many few programming languages which are supported by the Amazon Lambda. Lambda function concurrent functions default limit is 100 per region. So I feel like now you have a good idea about serverless architecture among, I mean, with all the exciting possibility Amazon Lambda has brought. So, I mean, let's discuss about conclusion. Here we come to a conclusion about serverless architecture. So as you know, I mean, we discussed about how serverless architecture is beneficial and its impact to business applications. The key benefits of going serverless is still continues to be cost, auto scaling, high availability, zero administration, and faster deployment. Of course, we definitely agree that it will also mature over time like other cloud services. I would now like ask Vinod to come back and carry on for the next slide.
Thank you, Varshal and Darshan. It was great to hear you for serverless architecture. I think now we can take questions from our participants. So now you can write down your questions on the right side of your chat box, and we can answer accordingly. Okay, so we get a question that about the presentation and video link. So definitely when we will be finishing the webinar, we will send a link of this video with the presentation to all of the participants. Okay, any other question? Okay, I think now we don't have any other question. So now I like to wind up the webinar over here. I again, thank you a lot to all the participants to, buy some time for this webinar. Thank you. Thank you, Varshan, Darshan. Thanks.